What's up, y'all? Welcome into another edition of the DNVR Rams podcast presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Happy Friday, y'all. Hope everybody has had a great week thus far, enjoying all of the hoops action. The first 48 hours of the NCAA tournament are about as good as it gets as a sports fan. I know a lot of you are probably tuned in right now, so we'll see what kind of live audience we have for today. But I do have a fun show planned for you. We are going to talk some hoops. I'll give some Final Four picks at the end with my guy Christian. I'll give some thoughts on the mid-majors punching up, which has been great to see. Get so tired of the hot takes from the folks that parachute into college hoops for 2 weeks and then want to say things like, why do we have mid-majors in the NCAA tournament, or they should do their own national championship, or just stupid stuff like that. You see with teams like Miami of Ohio taking care of business, St. Louis thumping Georgia by 30, Siena having Duke on the ropes. These teams belong, and that chaos is a part of what makes March Madness so special. You've got to embrace that. Don't be one of those dudes that's stressed over your bracket. If you do good on your bracket, that's a bonus, but just enjoy the action, enjoy the pageantry of it all. That's what I try and do. We are going to talk about the CSU football schedule. We've got Sutton Productions, I assume that username is, in the Toyota chat, saying so excited for next season. I am as well. I'm cautiously optimistic about what CSU football can be under Jim Mora in year one of the Pac-12 era. We're going to go through the schedule and kind of talk about the games you would most expect / hope to win. Must win isn't exactly a perfect phrasing, but I didn't know what else to do for headline's sake. But yeah, we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. I am going to give some thoughts on a disappointing end to the regular season for CSU men's basketball. Fell short in the NIT, lose 69-64 to St. Joe's at home. A lot like what you could say about San Diego State in the Mountain West tournament. Felt like they had every opportunity to win that game, despite playing probably like C- basketball at best. So a tough way for the season to end. I thought there were some really fun stretches, obviously some stretches you wish you could have back. I'll get into some big picture takeaways, talk about kind of what held this team back at the very end and more. I will admit, before we get into that, just kind of watching the tournament yesterday, was tough to see Kyan Evans only play 4 minutes for North Carolina. I've talked about it a million times. I certainly don't fault the kid. If you've got a chance to go play for one of the biggest brands in the sport and make a couple $1 million in the process, anybody is going to jump at that. So I don't fault him in the slightest. It's just a bummer that it played out this way, right? I mean, kind of a perfect example of the grass isn't always greener on the other side, even if the money is. Like, you can't fault the kid for taking that kind of payday and for the opportunity, again, to play at UNC. It's not just about the money. That brand carries a lot of weight in the sport. Get to wear the Jordan brand and wear the iconic Carolina blue. Like, you get all of that. It's just unfortunate because they didn't maximize them at all. It really went about as poorly as it can for somebody, you know, jumping from a mid-major to a high major. And in the end, he plays 4 minutes on a North Carolina team that blew a double-digit lead against VCU and got upset in the first round. If I had to bet, Hubert Davis is out at North Carolina, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with all of this. Does he enter the portal again? If I had to bet, he'll be in Minneapolis with Medved next year. But I mean, if you're CSU, you're certainly putting the possibility back on the table. It would be great to have him back. You think about some of the shortcomings with this CSU team this year. It would have been nice to have Cayenne. And so it's a bummer it played out that way. But if you missed it, Luke Howry who is a 2027 CSU commit, kind of getting into the CSU hoops combo here. 6'5" junior guard out of Chaparral High School, was named the Max Preps Player of the Year for the state of Colorado. Averaged 19 and 9 this past season. He's 49% from the floor overall over his sophomore and junior years. Currently committed to CSU, has one more year of high school, so not technically signed yet. But he and Fiedler, who is signed as a part of this 2026 cycle, are the kinds of local guys that, frankly, you would not have been in the mix for even 4 or 5 years ago. We've really seen the hard work from Ali especially, but the entire staff with some of these big programs, like SHAP, starting to pay off, and it's really exciting. Obviously, there's going to be some big schools that come sniffing late, and you hope that he stays committed to the vision. I think a lot of these Colorado kids look at CSU hoops differently now. The brand is viewed as far cooler than it once was. The success is a big part of that, though, right? Like, you've got to win, you've got to be fun to be relevant, and they've done a good job of doing that. But committed to CSU over CU, New Mexico's interested, Nebraska. So some big-time programs, and frankly, the types of programs that historically have, swayed the local kids that CSU have gone after away. So I think that's really encouraging. I just wanted to shout that out before we got into this. 6'5" guard, really great frame, two-way scorer. I mean, he's somebody who can stretch the floor a little bit for you, but he gets the hoop in a hurry. I'm really excited about his possibility. Again, you just hope that he stays committed. Obviously, the recruiting game is a bit chaotic, and a big school could come in at the last minute and change things. But at the minute, CSU commit Luke Howry doing big things. The Rams doing a great job on the local recruiting front. Also in the mix with Ryun Williams, and again, they signed Eric Fiedler this past year, the top-rated local recruit out of the state, and all of that. Very exciting. It would have been nice, if guys like Kerry Booth, like Neek Clifford would have signed with CSU in the first place. Just imagine what those rosters could have potentially looked like with Isaiah, Neek, and Roddy all on the floor at the same time. Would have been scary. 3 NBA dudes, although I guess it technically was that anyways when you factor in John Tonje. But it was a fun year for CSU hoops. Inconsistent, which can be frustrating for the fans. I certainly understand that. To me, it feels like they kind of ran out of gas down the stretch, which isn't shocking. You played some really intense games that you lost, and then even in that win streak, a lot of those were grinded out type wins that came down to the end, 40 hard minutes. It's not situations where you're on cruise control over the final 8-9 minutes of the game. It's just a lot of hard mileage, and I think you saw that kind of pay the toll eventually with guys like Butler and Rechsteiner. The legs just didn't really quite seem to be there in the same way. I think that impacted the shooting, which certainly fell off of a cliff over the last 4 or 5 games here to close the season, and that's tough. It's a bummer when it feels like the game is very much there for the taking. You're playing hard. It's not like the effort wasn't there, but the execution just wasn't. We saw, kind of some sloppiness offensively. They certainly weren't as efficient in the half court. Open shots that you were hitting in that win streak just stopped falling, and that's going to happen. I've talked about it a lot, how CSU, really going back to the Medved era, they get great looks in their half-court offense, but they've always been kind of a streaky three-point shooting team. The numbers tend to trend towards the top of the league over the course of the season, but it feels like they're the type of team that, shoots 75% from three-point, hits like 15 of 20, and then they go cold, for a stretch, and they hit like 4 of 20, and then they have another hot stretch. And over the course of the season, those numbers even out pretty well. But when you're in those cold stretches, it can feel pretty brutal, and that was definitely the case here at the end of the season. It was just a disappointing performance all around. I know the officiating was brutal right down to the very end. I'm not going to ramble about it. It's an NIT game. I don't think it's a situation where anybody is losing sleep, but it is a missed opportunity because it's valuable to get chances to play in a postseason format, to just get experience in those winner go home scenarios. You didn't go as far as you would have hoped to in Vegas. You didn't go as far as you would have hoped to in the NIT. And that's something that you hope to see change down the line, right? Like, I think overall, this team met realistic expectations for the year. They won 20 plus games. They beat multiple rivals. You get the home wins over Wyoming and CU, which is key. You punch up in a couple of instances. I mean, that South Florida team they beat was pretty good. That NCAA tournament team. Certainly going down to the pit and beating New Mexico, even if they didn't end up making the big dance in the end, that's an impressive win. But there were some stretches that were really frustrating, like the loss to DU most certainly can't happen. You'd love to have that road loss to Fresno State back. You'd love to have that Utah State home loss back where you shoot lights out, but you just turn the ball over all over the place. And some of that I think you attribute to inexperience. A lot of these guys in the rotation, they assumed far more responsibility within their roles than what they had been expected to do either at their previous school, in a lot of cases, Carey, Jace, and Rec, or like with the case of Jorgensen or Bemba, they're certainly expected to shoulder a lot more of the offensive responsibility than they had in previous seasons. And it was just inconsistent. Jorgensen wasn't the same guy after coming back from injury. Bemba is a guy whose physicality is really big for this team at times, but also he has these frustrating quirks, like the some of the fouls he picks up at times are just due to him getting a bad whistle, basically being penalized for being big. But there are times he is just overtly too aggressive and doesn't read the moment. And when you come onto the floor and pick up, immediate fouls like he tends to do, it can be frustrating for a player of his experience level. And so I just think when you factor all of that into the equation, the bigs not playing as well as they were earlier in the year, certainly not playing to their full capability, the jump shooting, falling off of a cliff, it's kind of a recipe for disaster for a team like CSU who doesn't truly have like an elite creator. They've got guys who can get good looks, certainly. Jace Butler, I thought, really grew in that regard. Rex Steiner, someone who can create his shot, but he's somebody who very streaky. And after having that hot stretch in the win streak, just didn't shoot the ball with the same consistency in the Mountain West tournament, and then had a rough one in this game as well, shooting the ball. There were just a lot of things that kind of worked against the Rams, and it all kind of compounded together, and it results in a pretty underwhelming performance against St. Joe's. And I was disappointed, most certainly, to see them lose the first game. I felt like they should at least win one, potentially get an opportunity to go up against Cal. That would have been kind of fun. But they just didn't have their A game. I don't think you fault the effort. Like, I don't think it was a situation like 2017 where the team they just didn't care about being in the NIT, and you could see that. Like, they never went away. Even late, when you go down 7 in the final minute, it certainly seems over, and then you find a way to create some turnovers and technically had a chance to tie the game, a layup late if you don't blow it. But it was just one of those nights, and you came close, but when you miss free throws down the stretch, when you blow layups, like you're not going to win very frequently. And unfortunately, a lot like what you could say again in the quarterfinal against San Diego State out in Vegas, you just didn't execute enough, especially when it counted. There were opportunities, kind of felt like they were begging you to make things interesting, and it would have been a crazy comeback had they been able to pull it off. But disappointing on multiple fronts. Would have definitely loved to have seen them win a game, even if the NIT doesn't have the same juice. Again, I don't think you're losing sleep about it or changing how you assess whether this season was successful or not. Like, it would have been great to get a couple of more wins to get some experience, but at the end of the day, the NIT is the NIT. I think we all get that. I was disappointed, though, and I was disappointed with the fan turnout. Now, I understand that it was a Wednesday night, 9 p.m. tip-off. The students are on break. It's a perfect storm for a bad crowd. The prices of the tickets were a little bit steeper than I would have anticipated as well. I know there were some fans that were kind of frustrated with that. It's a tough balance because it is expensive to host these types of games. You do kind of have to offset some of that revenue. So that's not like taking a shot at the school or anything, but I do understand that, had the tickets been a little bit cheaper, you probably get at least, 2,000 fans in the building. But the fact that it was a 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, it's not the tournament, all of that works against you. The Avs are playing the biggest regular season game of the season. against the Dallas Stars. That didn't help your cause. The Nuggets were also in action. So like there were a lot of things that probably prevented some of the casuals from potentially turning up. But I guess, when I see some of the commentary from CSU fans at times puffing our chests out, kind of acting high and mighty like we're so much better than some of these programs we're leaving behind in the Mountain West, when you then have a crowd that's 1/5 of what Nevada or New Mexico got for their NIT games, it's a bit ironic, and it is kind of a bad look for the fan base, I would say. And I'm not shaming anybody. Again, there's so many unique circumstances that prevented this crowd from being what it potentially could have been. But the madness was lacking at times in Moby this year. I felt like even some of the games where the turnout was there, the energy just wasn't. And when you experience like some of these other fan bases, New Mexico, San Diego State, when you experience the Utah State student section, the energy that they bring, the impact that they make on the game, CSU is lacking there. And I really hope to see some of that ruckusness kind of return. I miss Ram Ruckus. I think that's part of the problem is there's no real organized, student group that's kind of gone by the wayside. That's something maybe I'll bring up to admin at some point, like when we get Weber or some of these guys on the shows. I feel like you need more organization within the students. They've turned out in the last 5 years, despite the lack of success with football. Obviously, basketball has been a lot more fun, but I do feel like we have a level to jump in terms of consistency with support with this basketball program if we want to be respected at the levels of San Diego State and some of these other teams. Like, it works both ways, right? You want to be respected as a legitimate basketball program. Well, legitimate basketball programs get good turnouts when they host postseason games. And that just was not the case this time around. I will keep this talking, or I'll keep this going, I guess I should say. Let me shout out a couple of partners, then we'll get into the football schedule, all that fun stuff. But let me shout out a couple of our awesome partners here. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you are hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma. Check out the Land Cruiser. You can't go wrong either way. They offer 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Perfect for Colorado living because you have the durability, the dependability for the potential, weather that you're going to encounter. It gives you the ability to go off-roading or explore the mountains, all of that fun stuff. But you're not giving up the fuel mileage for when you're cruising around town. Really perfect for anybody living in the metro area. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. I also want to shout out to Raising Cane's. If you need a Cane's fix, order at raisingcanes.com or on the Cane's mobile app, where every chicken finger is hand battered and cooked to order just for you. Every crinkle cut fry comes from grade A premium potatoes. Each thick sliced Texas toast is lightly brushed with Cane's garlic butter blend and grilled on the griddle to golden brown perfection. Most importantly, the secret recipe Cane sauce is made in restaurant every single day. Fix those hunger cravings on the go now on the Cane's mobile ordering platform. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. All right, y'all. I could go for some Raising Cane's right about now. When you look at the season as a whole, I alluded to this a little bit at the beginning, but I think in terms of realistic expectations, given what was lost, given that you had a first-year head coach, you're trying to replace a first-round draft pick, and you lose, 80% of your production and minutes, and not just the fact that you're losing like bona fide stars, but a lot of experience went out the window these last couple of years. Isaiah Stevens, Nick Clifford, even Jalen Lake, some of the transfers that you brought in were far more experienced and polished than the guys you brought in this time, who have really exciting potential. We have really high hopes for what Kerry Booth, for what Jace Butler, for what Rex Steiner and some of these guys can be. But, Cartier, Joel Scott, even Bowen Bourne, some of those key guys on the tourney teams the last couple of years, they came in having played a lot of basketball, we're talking like 100+ games in their career. You can't replicate that in-game experience any way other than going out and getting it. Like, you can practice all you want. It's just not the same. For this team to do what they did and pull off some signature wins, I think it's really exciting. I think also coming into the year, you knew that Ali Farokhmanesh was a great recruiter. You knew he was somebody who played a key role in the development of Neat Clifford, of Roddy, of Zay, of all these guys that have come through the program. He has been right there, working with them individually, played a big factor in what allowed these guys to ultimately develop, thrive, and make it to the next level. You expected that to continue with him, sliding into the head role. I think without a doubt it did. You look at Kerry Booth, you look at Jace Butler, you look at Rex Steiner, you look at what those guys were when they came in versus what they were down the stretch in February. It's night and day. And again, you're going to have to hang on to these guys. Retention is a big factor. It's a huge element in all of this. I saw some people saying, and you can't ever put too much stock into random tweets on a night where the team loses. But I saw a couple people alluding to the need for significant turnover, expecting that. I've said that a few times now. I expect the majority of the key contributors of this team down the stretch to be back next year. Now, a lot can change. Big money offer could come in. Also, there's a world in which you find out, you have a chance to land somebody you didn't expect, and then that could potentially cause you to not hang on to somebody that you maybe thought that you would. There's so much that can happen in the next month, and I just want to be fair with that. But I expect a lot of those transfers that came in and found themselves here at CSU to be back. There's a couple of guys that I think will be really interesting. Jorgensen in particular. Had you asked me in December, I would have said most certainly that he was gone because we're just not going to be able to afford him. Again, he wasn't the same guy down the stretch. Now, I'm super high on him, and I think if he comes back, it would be huge for his development. Give CSU one more year. Even if you end up transferring up as a senior, come refine your game, grow defensively, continue to do the things that you're capable of in terms of offensive facilitation. As a big, he's a great passer. He can stretch the floor for you. He has room to grow in the post and on the defensive side. Come work on that. And if you get paid the following year, you get paid the following year. But it would be huge to have him back just for continuity's sake. Somebody like Augie is kind of interesting to me. He was actually one of the transfers that, from my understanding, and I don't know this officially, being fair to him, just from what I've heard, got a pretty decent payday to come to CSU. I think made more than some of the guys that were pretty instrumental to this team. So I think if he were to be back, you would definitely want it to be a pay cut, essentially. And it's weird to talk about this stuff, but the game has changed a lot, more or less professional basketball now. But he did not translate physically. I think he's somebody, you see the skill. He's got great footwork. He can score from every level. Just didn't translate athletically the way that I thought. And I thought he kind of struggled in the league slate. I'm very curious what happens, with your young guards, Darnez Slater and then JoJo McIver. JoJo flashed a lot and is somebody who I think has great potential. He's got a long ways to grow as far as being a true point guard. And I don't know if we saw enough to just bank on him being the guy for next year. It's certainly possible. We've seen plenty of dudes make pretty big leaps in their second year in this system. But I do think if you could get a veteran point guard, it's something you explore. Rex Steiner's great. Really hope he's back, but he's more of a two. Butler can facilitate some things offensively for you, but that's not really his role. He's not a true point guard. You definitely need a wing. You're going to have to replace Jev, and he's probably going to have some ball handling capabilities, just like Jev did, just like Neek did. That's a big part of what allows CSU to maximize some of these shooters off the ball. But I think there's a lot of reason to be excited with what this team can be next year if you keep some of these key pieces. You got to retain talent, and you've got to tweak a little bit. You've got to go out and get probably a little bit more depth for that front court, especially since Joppa is apparently not a part of the future vision, it seems, just based on, how little he played down the stretch. I would imagine he's somebody that will very likely transfer. McConan, you wouldn't be surprised if he transferred. He's been in the program a couple years now. Hasn't really gotten an opportunity. Darnez, I have no clue. I would love for him to stick around because he does feel like kind of a sneaky, valuable asset off the bench, somebody who can run the floor for you, good athlete, plays intelligently. But you could see him being interested in pursuing an opportunity where he's going to get to play more, and you wouldn't fault him if he did. But I think that so long as you keep a couple of these key pieces, you go out, you add a couple of veterans in the portal, there's no reason to believe that next year the expectation should not be to make the NCAA tournament. You would have loved to have made the tournament this year, but I think when you factor in the state of the roster and everything else, it was more of a hope than an actual expectation this season. Moving forward, that changes. This kind of has to be the baseline, right? This is the foundation that's been set. You've kind of set the tone here, but you've got to find a way to get back to the tournament because that's the expectation now. It's been elevated under Medved, under Ali. He played a big part of that. He talked about that when he was named head coach. He knew it. And ideally, you're going to have a lot more experience on the team next year, guys who have been around the block a little bit, who have played in this system for a year. And I think there's a great opportunity to make some noise in what should be a really fun league. Now, you're probably not going to win the league because you're going to be in the same conference as Gonzaga now, but there's no reason that you can't be on that tier of San Diego State, of Utah State, right there in the mix for an at-large bid. And I'm really excited for what this program can be. The last thing I'll just kind of say is I can't believe Ali got that tech late. I'm not going to ramble about officiating too much again in the game. You'd missed the layup at that point, so it more or less was over anyways. You got to have thicker skin than that as an official. I get it's a thankless job, but at this level especially, you have to give the coaches a bit of a chance. And Ali's not very demonstrative. He's not somebody who's going to, excuse my language here, but, MF the officials or anything like that. He'll argue, he'll complain, but he's not somebody that's going to cross the line. It's going to run out on the court and get in the face of the officials. To call it in that instance, knowing the emotion in the moment is so soft, especially because you're about to run away. Like if you're going to tee a coach up, do it early in the game, and then he's got another chance to tell you how he really feels. To do it at that stage and then run off the court at the end, that's super soft. And I just thought it was lame for a coach who, frankly, should get a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion. But when you're -8 in the paint, when you're -5 on the glass, when you go 7 of 30 from 3 points, when you miss 4 free throws in the second half and a 5-point loss, like, you can only blame yourself. It's not on the officials. CSU going 13 of 50 at 3-point over the last 2 home games. That's why you don't beat Boise State. That's why you don't beat St. Joe's. That's the difference in the end. Just not good enough execution. As far as the highs for the season goes, obviously the wins over CU and Wyoming are always huge. Beating New Mexico in the pit, I think, was the most impressive victory of the year. San Diego State, South Florida in the conversation as well. The lows, Utah State, Fresno State, San Diego State in the Mountain West Tourney, and then certainly DU. You can't continue to have these landmine losses that you've now had back-to-back years between UC, Riverside, and DU. It didn't cost you in 2025, and frankly, the fact that that team found a way to recover and then sustain it, like the fact that that 25 team didn't run out of gas, in hindsight, makes it that much more impressive, because it is hard to sustain a winning streak like that, particularly in league play where the games are physical. There's no secrets. They know what you're trying to do offensively. And that team just seemingly had an engine that was relentless. And I just think this team kind of ran out of steam. And that can happen sometimes, especially when you dig a hole and you have to work really hard to climb out of it. And yes, you would have loved to have made the tournament. Yes, the expectation should be to get back in that conversation next year and moving forward. But all things considered, in my opinion, when you factor in all of the circumstances, for a first-year coach, this was a successful season. Can't be the ceiling, can't be the standard. This isn't a scenario where you're just content with, we win 20 games, we factor into the conversation a little bit, we're good. No, the standard is far higher than that. But it was year one. You had to replace a ton. And you had a first-year coach who was very transparent over the course of the year about how he was trying to learn on the fly. And I just think that authenticity is so genuine with him, and it's going to be a big part of what allows him to be successful in the future. So I think the outlook moving forward is great. Really excited for what this program can be, but we'll see. we'll see. Future feels bright, but we shall see. We're going to pivot to football now. Another situation where you're cautiously optimistic for what the program can be, but you need that proof of concept. It's been so long since this team has truly been a real threat. And just the fact that we're going on 25 years without a conference championship is downright embarrassing. Hopefully that changes under Mora. Feels like they've got the right type of guy to turn things around. Definitely a McElwain vibe to him early in this process. Let me shout out a couple of partners, and we'll talk some football. All right, if you're looking for a new Ram hat to spice up the wardrobe, look no further than our friends at Branded Bills. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. If you're looking for gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, Branded Bills has you covered. With your best custom headwear, start your order. Their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel you need. They've got a partnership with CSU. As part of their on-campus collection, I've seen more and more people rocking the Branded Bills CSU hats of late. Very cool to see. It's why we're partners with them. Close to summer, you're going to want some of those breathable type hats that you can wear. Some like fitteds can be a little too thick, a little too sweaty for the summer. I like the mesh options for, moving around, if you're golfing, if you're hiking, whatever. Head to brandedbills.com, use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. All right. I also want to shout out the Kona Grill. Stop in at the Cherry Creek location or any of their other 22 locations across the U.S. The $6 Kona bar burger is available all day, every day at the bar. That's a better deal than fast food right now, and you're getting a sit-down meal. Their 369 happy hours available from 2 to 6 p.m. They've got great bites like chicken satay, ribeye meatballs, crafted margaritas, and amazing sushi rolls. The Taste of Kona tasting menu is a $39 three-course menu that includes an app, dinner, and dessert, plus a glass of wine or bubbles. That's a great deal. Great way to treat a significant other, maybe celebrate an accomplishment for somebody close to you. With the ALLCITY online code, you can buy one, get one steakhouse burger at konagrill.com. The code is ALLCITY26. Go to order online on konagrill.com. Use that code ALLCITY26 for buy one, get one steakhouse burger. It's good for delivery, takeout, or curbside pickup. Kona Grill, great partners of the show. Great way to support us is by supporting the brands that do. So go check that out. Go try the Kona Grill today. All right. Football. I rambled a little bit more about hoops than I intended to. Shocker. I'm sad college basketball season is coming to an end. I love this time of year. There's just something romantic about March Madness, and this time of year makes me a little bit bummed that the Rams aren't a part of it. On the men's side, obviously, a huge game tonight. On the women's side, I'll play a Ryun Williams clip before we get out of here. But I just kind of wanted to go through the schedule. This is something that we did in previous years, and it was pretty popular. Obviously, there's a lot to be learned about this team and everybody you're going to play on the schedule. We, as the media, have been able to go to one spring practice thus far. They're not having practice this week on spring break, so we'll be back out there next week, get more of an opportunity to learn about these newcomers. It's a lot of new faces, and while you look at the schedule and there's less first-year head coaches, only 2 on the schedule last year. Last year, I think it was like 5. There's still so much roster turnover. Like there's a lot to be learned about everything involved in this. And so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. Like some of these teams we're looking at on the schedule, we might assume are going to be in the, Pac-12 title race, but there's no guarantees, So I just wanted to factor that. We did not include Southern Utah. That shouldn't even be a conversation. The fact that it has been in some of these FCS games is a perfect representation of where we're at with this program. But I just wanted to throw all of this out. Must win, again, is kind of flawed, but I didn't really know how else to phrase it. We're kind of judging the criteria differently depending on each matchup. Some of these games you assume are going to be bigger for the Pac-12 title race than others. Some of them mean more to the fans than others. Some of them are big just in the sense of establishing some momentum and a hot start and getting people to believe, which has been an issue now, basically going back to the start of 2015, where you're still kind of riding the high of the McElwain era, even though it was a bummer that he left for Florida. But there was a belief that Bobo, who was one of the hot assistants coming in, could take things to the next level. And then just kind of right off the bat, you blow the game at home against Minnesota. That was very winnable. You lose to CU in Denver by 3 in a game. You missed 3 field goals. And it just felt like the wind went out of their sails from there. There were small stretches, the end of 2016 and the beginning of 2017, where you still believed a little bit. And then you have Wyoming Air Force Boise debacle with the 28-3 collapse and the Josh Allen game in Laramie. And really, it feels like since November of 2017, the Rams have been like desperately searching to get back to any type of relevant place. There was maybe a small flash in the pan in 24 where you took advantage of an advantageous schedule. I still think you'll take an 8-win season anytime you can get it, but I get it. You blow your chance to make the Pac-12 title game. You get thumped by Miami of Ohio in the Arizona Bowl, even if there was some tangible success. There was also proof that this program was still miles away from where it needed to be. And then everything comes to a dramatic end, in October of last year. They fire Norvell maybe a little sooner than I would have anticipated, but I thought that was a statement from the admin that this just wasn't acceptable and that the standard needs to be far higher. And frankly, you knew that because Weber came on my show and went on the record last August with Jay Norvell sitting right there and talked about how, last year was great and all, but it wasn't good enough and that they needed to see more. It didn't happen. Feels like it's kind of now or never. Like the gap between the haves and the have-nots, we've talked about it a million times. I don't want to get too repetitive, but it just feels like it's growing by the year, and a lot of these teams in this newly formed Pac-12 are just really trying to remain relevant in a landscape that is doing everything in its power to leave us behind. So no pressure or anything, Jim Mora, but the life, it feels like the soul of CSU football is in your hands here. And it just would be so massive for the program to get it going this year. You've got a fun slate. You've got 7 home games again. You've got some big brands coming to Fort Collins. Feels like you got a somewhat advantageous breakdown of home versus road games within the league. You got Boise and San Diego State at home, Texas State, Utah State. Those aren't the most intense road trips. Fresno and Washington State in November is going to be tough. We'll get into all of that. But the time to win is now. And you've got an admin who's wholeheartedly in. You've got Jim Mora, who's won at a lot of different levels, who knows what it takes to get it done. There are no guarantees, but it feels like they have the right type of people on campus. They're winners. It just felt like for so long, the status quo that even people like myself just got so accustomed to was, well, what are you going to do? Like you're just CSU. And it feels like right now you've got a bunch of people from the top down who are looking at this situation and thinking, why not us? Why not CSU? We invest at the right rate. We've got the facilities. We've got a great university. We've got an awesome college town to live in. There's no reason that this program can't be punching up with far more consistency than what we've seen since Sonny Lubick retired. And I know he's technically fired, but you know what I mean. You've got to get it going because at some point you just start to feel like Charlie Brown trying to kick that football. And eventually you just stop trying altogether. All right, with that in mind, we're going to start at the top. I'm not going to be cute about it. Number 1, and I don't even think this is debatable, it's Wyoming, without a doubt. Not an easy way to kick off the new era for Jim Mora. You get to play the most important rival on the schedule this year. You're trying to snap what's been a really discouraging trend over the last decade, only 2 wins over Wyoming. This is CSU's most important rivalry. You don't play CU every year because they act like they're too good for it. Embrace this as a program. Embrace the border war. Embrace the hatred from everybody on the field to the coaching staff, to the admin, to the fans in the stands. You want to know why you lose to Wyoming every year over the last decade? They want it more. They just want it more. They play harder and they punk CSU because it hasn't been for a lack of talent. CSU has had the talent advantage in damn near every one of these matchups, and it has not mattered because the Rams have come in soft. They've got punched in the face, and they've been embarrassed by them repeatedly. And I think there is an arrogance to CSU that is kind of frankly unearned at the moment. Like you want to walk around and act like you're so much better than Wyoming. Well, they come in and they kick our ass year after year, and it's something that has to change. When you play CU, sure, it's going to matter a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. You know, the hype is always going to be there for the Rocky Mountain Showdown. But the best teams in history, the teams that competed for championships, that went to bowl games, that won 10 plus games, those teams beat Wyoming. And for me, that's priority number one with this program. You want to be a championship contender. You want to be a team that factors into the conversation, the Pac-12, even if this isn't a league game anymore. It starts with beating Wyoming in September. You have to win this game. And I'm just so tired of seeing CSU show up and look soft, frankly. It's just been an issue that's far too persistent, and it's got to change. And until it changes, you aren't going to do a damn thing. So, number one, without a doubt, beat Wyoming, get people on board. It's at home. You know, you've got the Pac-12 debut in about a month. But it's just so important that a lot like you did in 2014, and I know that was year 3 at that point under McElwain, but it's been since then that you've had like a 3-1 type start to begin the year. 4-0, probably a little bit unrealistic with BYU coming to town. I don't even think 2-2 is enough to really get the juice going. And that's why you're going to see a theme here at the beginning. I think a hot start for CSU, a lot like what I said last year, if Norvell wanted to keep his job, was really important, just because, again, you have a fan base who feels like Charlie Brown. Every year there's all this preseason hype. Every year there's the thought this is going to be different. And every year before we even get to October, all of that hope has gone out the window. It's got to change. You have to start with a bang over those first 6 weeks. You've got to, beat Wyoming. You've got a FCS team coming. You've got to take care of business there, have a 3-1, a 4-1 type start, and get people on board. And from there, who knows what can happen? It feels pretty wide open in the Pac-12, but starting with a bang has never been more important. Number 2, I think it's Oregon State. I think outside of Wyoming, this is the most important home game. There are some other games that you would love to win that are probably going to be against better competition. BYU, Boise State, San Diego State. I think all are better teams than Oregon State, but this feels winnable, and you want to start the Pac-12 era on the right note. The hype is going to be substantial. You've got to come through in a big game setting. You really have to go back to 2014 to find a team that it felt like week after week you expected them to deliver. And even that team came up short in the regular season finale against Air Force. But again, like going back to that 2015 non-conference slate, it just feels like outside of the Kansas State, or the Oregon State opener against Kansas, outside of the Oregon State game to open up Kansas Stadium, if I could talk without having a stroke here, it just feels like the Rams have come up short in those big game scenarios every single time. That's got to change. It's a chance to make a statement that this is going to be different if you're CSU in the Pac-12, a chance to start anew. If nothing else, a change of scenery feels like it's needed for CSU. So while you can debate, conference realignment, I've got my own qualms, my own thoughts on, maybe what would have and could have happened had you taken a few more of these Mountain West teams along for the ride with you. We've talked about why it didn't happen. There's pros and cons to all of that. I get it. But if nothing else, it's a chance to start fresh. And frankly, it feels like you need that if you're CSU. Number 3, at UTSA. Feels like the most winnable road game on the slate. To UTSA's credit, they're pretty tough at home traditionally under Jeff Traylor since he's been there. But a hot start is going to get people to believe 2-2 isn't enough. The schedule only gets tougher October beyond. It feels like 3-1 should be the expectation. 4-1's the hope. BYU is potentially a playoff team, though. They got Bear Bachmeier coming back. They're certainly going to be one of the teams picked to finish at the top of the Big 12. This is a game that you can potentially put a stamp on the first month of the season and really validate that this is, in fact, going to be different under Jim Mora. You want the fans to buy in. You want everybody to be on board. Go out and win these games. This is the type of game that I think McElwain certainly would have won. I think even Bobo wins this game, if I'm being real. Norvell, Dazio, most certainly, they probably lose it. So you want to show that this is different. Go out and beat UTSA. They're not going to have Robert Henry anymore, the star running back. They're going to have a new quarterback. We'll see, what they look like in that first month. Just a heads up, I'll talk about this as we get closer. I'm getting married that weekend, so that'll be the first game in over a decade that I probably don't have any type of live commentary. I'll certainly talk about it, and I'll be back for the Pac-12 opener. But they've got to get it done. Get it done for J. Mike. That can be my wedding present. Go out and win a road game. Number 4, another road game at Texas State. This is October 17th, first road game in the Pac-12. On paper, it feels like the least intimidating of your road matchups in conference play. Don't want to be dismissive because that's a program that's been good under KJ Kine, but also if you want to be taken seriously, if you really want to make some noise in the Pac-12, this is the type of game you've got to win. Boise State, San Diego State, those are going to be far harder matchups. These are the games you've got to steal, and it feels like these are the games you've shot yourself in the foot the last couple of years. Like when I think back to 23 and finishing 5-7, like that team most certainly would have found a way to blow this game. You've got to get it done if you want to be anything better than average. I would say Southern Utah, again, separate from this conversation, but you've got to assume that you're going to win that game if you have any self-respect at all as a program. That and these 4, if you win all of them, you're going to be a bowl team at least, because I don't think you're going to go 0 for in the other 6. But it lays the foundation, and it gives you an opportunity at least to make a little bit of noise. Whether you're able to do it or not, to be determined. But that's how you give yourself an opportunity. You have to strike while the iron is hot, and you've got to get the ball rolling over the first half of the season, because again, the schedule is far tougher in the second half of the slate than it is at the beginning. At number 5, initially I had BYU. I ended up shuffling these a little bit. I went with Boise State. These are games you would love to win, maybe not necessarily expect to win, but you would really love to win them. They're home games. You've got to expect to take care of business at home more times than not. I think you've got to win at least one of those 3, ideally 2 out of the 3, but at least one. If I could pick any of those to win out of Boise, San Diego State, and BYU, I would put Boise number 1 just because they've been the face of your league. They've been the front runner since they've come in 2011. But the gap between them and everybody else, it isn't what it once was. But you want to prove that it's different. This is the type of game you win. They're beatable, especially with Madsen coming back. They just don't feel that intimidating. They're going to be good. They'll probably be a 10-plus win team, but it doesn't feel like you're playing Kellen Moore and some of those all-star teams. You don't have, some of the just studs that they've had. We'll see. I guess it feels like they always have some type of good running game, but the crown is theirs until somebody else takes it. You're in a new era. Sure, they own the Mountain West. It doesn't have to be that way in the Pac-12, though. Beat Boise State would be absolutely huge. At 6, I went San Diego State. The reason I put Boise and San Diego State over BYU is because league games more of an implication on your in-season goals. You'd love to beat by BYU, but it's not the end of the world. We'll see. I expect San Diego State to be pretty good. They got Denegal coming back. They're going to run the ball. Lewis is very innovative offensively. We'll see. Are they just kind of okay, like a 7-win team, or are they really formidable and more like a 10 or 11-win team? But at home, you like your chances, or at least you should. I do have BYU at 7. You're 27, 39, and 3 all time, which is honestly pretty respectable. It's better than I would have anticipated. You did lose 7 straight, though, to close the Mountain West era. First matchup since 2010 when they thumped an awful CSU team 49-10. I always go back to that 08 shootout. CSU lost 45-42, but one of my favorite just random regular season type games was the one where Crocker-Johnson chest bumped Joey Porter in the end zone. I lost it with my dad. Last win over BYU, you got to go all the way back to 03. CSU thumped them 58-13 in Provo, actually beat BYU. That was a weirdly rough stretch for them. Beat them by 3 scores 3 times in a 4-year period. I do think they're going to be quite good. I think you're probably going to be 10-plus point dogs in this game, even if you do start kind of hot. It's not a season killer to lose this one, but again, you want to prove this is different. Go out and beat BYU in September and see the type of buy-in you would get from there. This one's weird. Never had to do this, but number 8, the regular season finale. tentatively against Texas State at home. Could technically be, I believe, Utah State or Boise State. We'll see how the flex scheduling plays out, but a lot like you would say, with the beginning of the season, you want to go out on the right note. At the end here, I've got Utah State, then Fresno, then Washington State. Of the 3 road trips, Utah State feels the most winnable. There's sort of been an organic rivalry that's kind of formed just with how competitive the games have been going back to, 2010-ish, even before they joined the Mountain West. There were a couple of good games. Feels like every time they play, it's a one-score game where something wild happens. You expect Utah State to be competitive, but not really a program you fear. You've got to win at least one of those 3 road trips to have any chance of factoring into the mix here. But Utah State feels the most winnable on Halloween, followed by Fresno. You got to win one of those November road games. Neither's particularly easy. Fresno always is just kind of tough, but you thumped them last year, so can you make it 2 straight? Wazoo might be the team I know the least about right now. It's their 3rd head coach in 3 years. Kirby Moore felt like was a good hire. It could be vulnerable, or it could be a great turnaround. I'm sure they're thinking everything that CSU is. Why can't this be different under Kirby Moore? Why can't we be a team that, is right there at the top in the Pac-12? Doesn't feel like there's any giants to get over. It's just another tone-setting type of game for what CSU wants to be in the Pac-12. The Sonny Lubick era, if you could put, 0-2 Sonny coaching those teams in the Pac-12 today, they're winning 8+ games. They're beating teams like Washington State. They aren't scared of them. Feels like the last 15 years, though, this is the game you lose. So that's how I've got it ranked 1 through 11. Wyoming, the most important to win. Washington State, although, again, take all this with a grain of salt. Like, there's a world in which that game directly decides if you make the Pac-12 title game or not. And then at that point, that would be the most important game of the year at that point. But going into the season, looking at things in the big picture, this is just kind of how I see them. If you win those first 4 plus the FCS game, Wyoming, Oregon State, UTSA, Texas State, if nothing else, it gives you a chance to make some noise, which at this point you will take if you are CSU. Before we get out of here, I did want to talk about the NCAA tournament a little bit. I wanted to talk about CSU women's basketball going up against Michigan State tonight, 5:30, ESPN News, I believe, against. It's an opportunity to potentially seize the biggest win of the century. I mean, the Rams have done a lot of good things under Ryun Williams. He's the winningest coach in program history, but still looking for that first NCAA tournament win. Significant dogs, but that's why you play the games, right? Like we saw yesterday's a perfect example of you go out and you play and you see what you can do. I think the Xfinity X Factor in this one, this is the Xfinity X Factor presented by Xfinity. Imagine that. It's going to be 3-point shooting. I just think you're going to have to be able to space the floor to create some driving lanes, which is a big part of what CSU does. You're going to have to play with pace. But the Rams are 11-1 this season when they hit 8 or more 3-pointers in a game. You're going to need to be able to get the 3 ball going to have a chance, given the athletic mismatch that you're going to have against this Michigan State Spartans team. That was the Xfinity X Factor presented by Xfinity. Imagine that. Obviously, I'm not out in Norman, Oklahoma. I wish that I could be to cheer on this team. 27-7 is a great year. They've won 9 straight. They haven't lost a game by more than 3 points since January. They're battle tested, but it's a tough spot given who you're matched up against. Given that you lost your best player in Lexus Bargesser, it's tragic that she tore her ACL. You feel gutted for her. Just she was so big all season long, and she would have been one of those players you felt pretty good about translating in this type of matchup. But here is a clip of Ryun Williams speaking at the NCAA tournament, answering some questions from Liv Sewell, awesome CSU student, does great work on the Ram Wire. But this was kind of his opening statement, and then just giving some thoughts about this opportunity for the program, for these seniors coming together, and a big opportunity again for this program. Here is Ryun Williams at the NCAA tournament.
I was just telling Tamika the very first WNBA game I attended, it was Minnesota Lynx playing the Fever, and I could not believe that a women's basketball player was that good. She was awesome. So, hey, we're excited to be here. This has been an exciting week for our squad. Obviously, last week in Vegas was a blast too. But to be dancing, to be in Norman, we're really excited.
LivesFoolCSURams.com. Chloe, right before this, said, "Don't count us out." You guys talked about the relentless competitive mindset you guys have had since the summer. How would you characterize that in a tournament like this?
Well, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Chloe would say something like that, and I think any one of our players would speak just like that. The competitive mindset, the competitive character of this group is what has allowed us to be 27-7, and you could kind of see that all the way back in June when we first got together with this new group. That although we weren't very good in June, you could tell they really like to compete, and that we had. That's the first thing to becoming a championship team, is you better have that makeup, and this group surely demonstrated that early on.
Do you want to kind of see this as a continuation from the way that you have played in the regular season, or is it kind of a fresh mindset? What would you say your approach is?
A little bit of both, right? I mean, a little bit of both. But, you know, this group really all year long has just continued to get better. You know, some increments may be a little bigger than others, but, you know, they've accepted every challenge that's been put in front of them. And, yeah, this is a little different stage, but at the end of the day, the ball is going to be tipped, and you better have the focus where it needs to be. You better have your compete on, just like they have all year, and make it just a basketball game. And that's what I've appreciated about our team, is that whatever environment they've been put in, and we've played in some tough places, they've always been ready to go, and they've always put themselves in a position to win. Almost every single night they've done that, and that just screams compete.
And do you kind of see, with the 4 seniors you guys have on the roster, what is it kind of like seeing them end their college careers this way?
Well, yeah, it's neat for seniors to end their career in this tournament. That's the ultimate goal, right? Is to be playing in the most prestigious tournament in the world. And so it just shows that, you know, all their hard work, their loyalty. I mean, we've got 3 seniors that have been with us for 4 years, has paid off. And so that was the neatest thing for me in Vegas, was just seeing the joy on their faces, because they knew they really accomplished something, and they knew where they were going. And so for seniors to go out that way is a really neat thing. And they're a huge reason why, again, our record is what it is. You know, you don't go through a season smooth sailing. It just doesn't happen. You're going to have the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, and you need your oldies to get you through those phases. And this group surely did that.
Big shout out to Ryun Williams. Big shout out to the CSU women's basketball program. I've been critical at times of that program. I just feel like not making a tournament over the last decade was a bit of a letdown. Moving forward, you would hope to not see it be another decade, but what this team has accomplished down the stretch here has been downright remarkable, and they deserve a lot of credit for seizing a big opportunity. Sure, they benefited with San Diego State getting upset in the conference tournament, but they still had to get through UNLV. They had to win against a red-hot Air Force team who felt like they might have been like just one of those teams of destiny or something. And it'll be really fun to see kind of what this team can do this evening. Odds are stacked against them, especially without Bargesser, but you never know. That's why you play the games. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, as I rambled so much more over the first 55 minutes than I anticipated. I did want to give Final Four picks, though. I've got my guy Christian here. He's a big college basketball fan as well. Does a great job covering the Rockies for us. He's been producing me of late. Really appreciative of him. But Christian, I know you're a big college hoops fan. You got the Gonzaga background. Have you enjoyed the tournament so far?
I have. Compared to last year, when I felt like there were no upsets, the first 2 days of watching March Madness was kind of, frankly, miserable. This has been a nice, pleasant breath of fresh air. So we're already in a better spot.
It is a little bit less chalky. I will say CSU, they upset Memphis, had a chance to be a Cinderella if they They call travel on Derek Queen. I'm over it. It's fine. I don't think about it once a week or anything like that. Let me throw it to overtime real quick, and we'll talk NCAA hoops here at the end. Christian, obviously I am biased towards the mid-majors. I cover the Mountain West and have for a long time, and it's always been a league to me that competitively is right on par with, some of the best leagues in the country. I get it's not the Big 12 or something like that, but it feels like it's gotten some small time treatment, and there are narratives of like, oh, they don't show up in the tournament. And I always kind of root for these mid-major teams. So seeing Miami of Ohio, seeing VCU take down North Carolina, St. Louis, thumping Georgia by 30, Siena having Duke on the ropes. It's just been a lot of fun. And like, to me, kind of like what you said, like, this is what makes the NCAA tournament special, right? Like, we don't want it to be all chalk. I know that sometimes upsets can lead to some wonkier matchups down the line that maybe aren't as competitive if you had a couple of blue bloods or something like that. But to me, it's screw your bracket. It's just, let's see what kind of chaos we can get going here.
March chaos is the best kind of chaos. And I feel like the fact that we didn't get as much of that last year just made me more primed for this year. I remember we were even talking about it downstairs. We're doing the watch along yesterday and today too. And, RK famously always talks about how he'll always bet the underdogs. And because if one of them hits, right, that covers almost all of your losses on your other bets. But he had said too, he was like, yeah, if we get chalk again this year, I might ditch that strategy. So it's been good. It's been entertaining basketball so far. My team, Gonzaga, has, they played well. They didn't get bounced in the first round, which was nice. So we're hanging in there.
I am going to get you on here at some point so that we can just go back and forth about what this future Pac-12 might look like and kind of expectations for Gonzaga and this new world. I certainly think they'll still be the best brand. I mean, it's going to be a big benefit to get a full media share revenue and not have to split that with football. So like competitively, they have a massive advantage when it comes to that. Where are you at though with this team? Because it felt like big expectations coming into the year, lost a couple of games they maybe shouldn't have, and then kind of lost some of the national love, but they've got Graham Ike. They've got a ton of experience. Does this feel like a potential title year to you?
It doesn't. I covered Gonzaga when they went to the national championship, lost to Baylor. It was that undefeated season. I think it was 2021. And it felt like that was the year. Obviously they were undefeated. That was a wagon of a team. But you look at the playmakers that they had, you had Jalen Suggs. You had, I think Chet Holmgren was there at the time, Corey Kispert, Drew Timme. At the time, those were like household college basketball names. And this year, Graham Ike, he's playing incredible levels of basketball that, we've known about for a long time. But I just don't think they have the playmakers that they used to have, right? They don't have the shooters that they used to have. And I think that's why, and I actually have Michigan as my championship team.
I do too.
If you look, and if you look at Michigan and what they did against Gonzaga, and I know it was earlier in the year, but I think they won, it was like 101-61 or something like that in like the first quarter of the season. So I think you see them go up against the Michigans of college basketball, and it kind of brings you back down to earth. And again, it reminds me of them playing against Baylor in that 2021 year where they went undefeated and then they went up against Baylor and just got blown out in the national championship. So I don't think this is the year for Gonzaga. I think they'll go to maybe the Elite Eight, maybe. But I don't think they've got it in them to go to the Final Four.
Tough quadrant, being in the same region as Arizona.
Yeah.
I did take them to the Final Four. Gonzaga is one of those teams that I just back every year, and a lot of the time I end up getting burned by it, but I just seem to I pick St. Mary's to win a game every year too, and they always come up short. So I got to learn my lesson, I guess. But I've got Duke, Houston, Michigan, and Gonzaga in the Final Four. Who do you got?
I'm actually going all chalk in the Final Four because I think, although I enjoy the upsets in the early rounds, I think as it gets going, things start to kind of weed themselves out a little bit and funnel back down to being more chalk. So I actually have all the number one seeds in the Final Four. Duke gave me a little bit of Duke gave me a little bit of a scare yesterday. But yeah, I think it's all number one seeds in the Final Four. And like I said, I think Michigan, again, if you look at their early season, they were just blowing out good basketball teams. Auburn, Gonzaga, Houston. I mean, it was impressive. So I think Michigan's got what it takes.
You got Michigan beating Duke then, I assume?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what I've got. It felt kind of boring, but they're the best teams I've watched consistently this year. Arizona's really, really good as well.
Yeah.
It's not even fair. It's different teams, but it's just that Arizona and the tournament vibe that always scares me away.
Well, and I always think like the tournament, if I had it perfectly, the tournament is more fun if you get the upsets early and then you get the big matchups later in the tournament, right? Like that's the best of both worlds, where you get those crazy upsets in the first few rounds, but then at the end, you still end up with a 1-versus-1 in the championship. Like personally, I think that's just the best brand of basketball, because it's going to be competitive no matter what. And so I hope that that's the way it happens. I filled out my women's bracket. I can't remember what I had for that, but I also think women's basketball tends to lean more towards chalk across the board. You don't usually see the 16-versus-1 upsets as much in women's basketball, just because it's so much more of a technical style of basketball. So I like that we've seen some good upsets in the men's side.
I love it. Christian, thanks for hopping on, talking a little bit of hoops with me. We're going to have more and more of Christian on the pod, because I just like chopping it up with him. And he's a basketball fan, which we need more of in this world. College football gets all the attention and it's great and whatnot. But
hey, I'll jump on the college football train once football season comes on. I'm full in baseball mode once basketball is done, though.
That's fair. That's where I'm at. You've got a whole season to cover here.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys check out Christian's Rockies coverage. He's actually done a good job of making that team fun to talk about again, which is not an easy task. I've got a ton of written content coming your way over the next week or so. It is my younger brother's bachelor party tonight, so give me a day or two of grace before I lock back in on the football and hoop stuff. R.I.P. Chuck Norris passed away this morning, one of the more iconic celebrities, I feel like, if you're of a certain age. The Chuck Norris jokes, Walker, Texas Ranger. He was the man. That one bummed me a little bit, Christian. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that was tough. Especially waking up to that news is always it puts a damper on the day. But yeah, R.I.P. Chuck Norris, man.
Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Brandon Bills. Head to BrandonBills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off your first order. Shout out to everybody in Ram Nation. Good luck to the ladies tonight. We are always proud to be around here. Much love, y'all. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.